Welcome back to American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL. And people, I want you to know we are online worldwide at 1300WMEL.com. So this is a fine opportunity, if you didn't do so during the break, to get on the horn, whether you're at your computer, send some emails out, but call people you know that are outside our terrestrial radio signal right now. And we do. We reach all of Central Florida pretty much, Glenn.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get back to Joanne, I just want to say to our listeners out there that this information that we're having passed out mostly by Joanne in this show today applies to all veterans. It's not just the current veterans coming home, it's Vietnam veterans, and especially you World War II veterans out there who seem to be great at compartmentalizing and hiding away all your feelings and everything for all these many years, and might be some advice that'll help you out here.
Oh, that's a good point, Glenn, because that is the greatest generation, as it's been termed, did have a very unique way of compartmentalizing and just getting on with their lives, and yet all this stuff, the battlefield stress, combat fatigue, whatever it was termed back then, is still there.
Yeah.
And they're not effectively dealing with it. And one way that they can deal with it or help deal with it is what Joanne Ivins, AVET Project's Director of Counseling, in our new segment, Journey of the Spirit with Joanne, has to offer regarding breathing. So we left off before the break, Joanne, with you starting to get into some details on how an individual can kind of at least reduce the stress level they're feeling in the instant, right? And did we lose Joanne?
Stressful situations, but you can control your perception of them. And you can pull your brain into thinking that there's some degree of control, and that will decrease the stress response. So, and it's part of breathing, and it makes so much difference in your brain. And I want to just do this really quick, simple thing. It's so simple. I know the police and the firemen, they use it under a stressful situation. And that would be to close your eyes.
Let's all try this. Let's just listen to Joanne, and let's do a little experiment and follow her instruction. Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, everybody just close your eyes and breathe really, really deep, like you have lungs down in your tummy. And breathe in and breathe out deep. Breathe in and breathe out again. And I want you to concentrate on your heart beating. Feel your heart beating and see your heart beating. Just concentrate on your heart as you breathe deeply. Now think of the most beautiful thing that you can think of.
Could be a sunset, could be the ocean, could be, family member.
Whatever is beautiful to you.
Okay, as we're breathing deep and listening or imagining our heart beating.
Now that's all you have to do. It just takes a minute. Because when you do it, it changes your breathing and calms the mind instantly.
It really does. Glenn, did you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one quick tool that somebody that's experiencing crisis or high level of stress or frustration could do. Maybe they're sitting there waiting to see a doctor at the VA and they've been there for 2 hours, Joanne. This would be a good exercise?
It is. It just calms them instantly. And I wanted to tell them too that to try to talk to people, talk to someone. Talk is the most healing medicine because instead of holding it all inside, they can just verbalize what they feel and spend time with others. Don't be alone and isolate yourself. Because I've noticed sometimes I've been at the VA quite a few times with my son-in-law, and I'll just talk to the vet sitting there, and they're from, like you say, from different wards, from different whatever
Sure.
time period. But they all love to talk and be able to acknowledge, when they're sitting there. And one of the things I'd like to offer to on the families is please offer your assistance if they need any help. If they need help listening, sometimes they just want you to be there. Sometimes they want you to just take them to the store. Any minor little thing, they just want the connection. And don't take their irritability personally. Sometimes they have a stress reaction about something and they might, talk bad or say something or yell or whatever.
That's a good point. State that again. State that again. I think they need to hear that.
Well, I know sometimes when they're stressed out, they may blurt out a cuss or yell or do something because they're so stressed. And some people take it personally and then they walk away, but they're not really directing it at you. And so you need to try not to take it personally when they're doing that. Just let them vent for a few minutes. Because when getting it out, and then they're back to who they are, you know, so don't take it personally. And just, you know, spending time with each other, and talk about what happened. Let them talk about what happened, even though sometimes parents or people go, parents or wives or everyone go, oh no, I don't want to hear that, I don't want to hear that. But you need to hear that. That's what they're living through. You know, you need, if you love them, you need to be a part of all their life, not just this part.
So that's a good point. I want to just kind of reemphasize that. A family member, whether it's a spouse or even a child or certainly a parent, that sees a dramatic change in the service member that's come home, and if that service member has an outburst, and heck, I have outbursts, but if they have an outburst, number one, don't take it personally. And this is the work that the family member can do. Just recognize that it's coming from inside the veteran, and it could be frustration over, like we talked about, Glenn, the VA, whether it's a healthcare or even a benefits claim issue that's just languishing out there. They could have that built up in them. Now, a World War II vet, like you mentioned, may have some unique coping method to shove that back in, but we're encouraging even them, even World War II and Korean vets, to kind of let that out, hopefully in a controlled and moderate way. But if they do have an outburst, the family member should, one, not take it personally, and two, kind of look ahead, look past what that is and see where it may be coming from or being generated from.
Yes, I know of a Vietnam vet that this affected his whole life, where he could never even eat dinner with his family. He was always distancing himself from them, you know, and so it's spent his whole life doing that. And that's so sad, because they need that. They need that connection. They need to know that you're there and you understand, and you can talk about anything. That's what it should be about. Let them talk, you know.
Yeah, and veterans and their families, particularly combat veterans, should understand that there's a vet center in most fairly good-sized cities, Melbourne being one of them, on Sarnall Road, called a vet center that offers free of charge counseling for combat veterans and their families. So part of that counseling, I'm sure, can, if appropriate, focus on understanding what the veteran went through, particularly for family members who don't have a military background.
Yes, and one of the things I would ask them is to not be overly critical of themselves, you know, because they blame themselves for so many things. It's a sense of blame when they come back. If they survive, they have survival guilt, and, you know, so many things, and they got to realize, you know, try not to do that. And one thing that can help is sometimes they can't sleep. You know, they wake up, and when they do, if they would get a little notebook out and just write down their feelings, you know, write down what's bothering them. Because in your mind, like I said, the mind's like chatterbox. It goes over and over and over and over, and never shuts up. So they need to, like, sit it down or whatever, have a tablet there, and just write down what their mind is going over. And it helps to calm it.
Okay, so in the middle of the night, they're awakened, whether they've had a nightmare or they're just frustrated with sleep, it's broken sleep or what have you, to have a journal there and literally, you know, turn on the night light and start jotting some notes down as to what they're thinking about and what they're feeling at that moment?
Yes, because sometimes, hopefully, I know, maybe in another program we can help them understand to rethink it. I mean, they always think it a certain way, and to look at it in a different light, look at it differently, because sometimes it could help them to do it that way.
And
they're looking at it with blaming themselves, I should have, you know, that kind of a thing, where they can go, this is all I could do, and this is what happened, and there's nothing I could do about that, when you're looking at it in a different way.
And the value of that, and again, we've been teaching journaling to those that are forward deployed through our EEB, Empowerment Equipment Box program, for years now. But the value of that is, number one, you have a record of what you were experiencing. And number two, you can examine it, whether it's the next morning or a month from now or even 2 years from now, Glenn, and they can see, gosh, whether they've progressed or regressed. They can kind of see if there's a central theme to their frustration or anxiety or whatever's been bothering them.
Exactly, and I'm most impressed with what Joanne is saying, just by the act of journaling when you wake up in the night because you're having a problem sleeping, it will calm your mind, and hopefully you'll be able to get some sleep. And because if you run too long without sleep, you get other problems.
And Joanne, you've got personal experience with your son-in-law, with the myriad health problems he's had, and dealing with the VA as well. Give me some insider information on how you've been able to counsel him on conquering some of these issues, particularly around sleep.
Yes, well, he's very traumatized by what happened. He was in the Battle of Fallujah, and he still has trouble sleeping, but what he does is he gets up and he watches TV or plays a game. He has a game that he plays to distract his mind, because you can't just sit there and think, because that's what some of them do, is just sit there and think, and then they get frustrated and angry and all these other emotions. So if you can distract your mind, and maybe not even in the program, distracted. Maybe it's not really into the game, but it makes them use his physical, mind and body to reaction to it. And it's just so hard to see how much they try to be with the family and try to be it. And then something like we just went to Camp Pendleton for the 10-year reunion of the Battle of Fallujah, and he met the guys there that he was with. I don't know what they call it.
His unit, right?
Battle buddies.
Right. And then, so they were all there, and yet they distanced themselves. They had some that were the snipers, and they distanced themselves from the other ones, and then they all got together on the beach and stayed and talked about different things. And it was helpful to him because all these guys had seen for so many years, and they had all experienced the same thing. And so it's good for him to be, that's one thing he likes. He gets around different guys that he's been with, or even other vets, and he tries to help other vets by being there for them and letting them talk to him and, what their experiences and what can I do to help. Just like Aaron, they're always, what can I do to help you? That means so much to them, and especially him. And of course, he's gotten married, has a baby, and his life's changing. Before, he was very traumatized and into all the different things that the vets go into. They get into alcohol, and they get into drugs, and they try to dull their mind. I don't want to think about it, and so they go through very stressful situations, different ones, and then they, finally get their life back together a little bit here and there. It takes a while. Not
Sure.
Like that kind of a thing, And he had very traumatic things happen at the VA also, but he had a spokesman, and that was his wife, who, when they thought really bad, he had an 11-hour operation, and the next morning at 7 in the morning, they took his morphine away. And, she had to go and get somebody and start yelling and screaming, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then they went in, had 3 doctors in within that 10 minutes, go, oh, sorry, it was error in judgment. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You have a spokesman for you. You have to have somebody that you can go to and say, I need you there for me. Talk to me once in a while. Sometimes I don't know how to express myself. That type of thing.
Right, and for all those that are listening right now, or you're watching this on YouTube, keep this in mind. That's a great story. It's not, I was going to say anecdotal. That's a great story because it really happened. And his gurney was parked out in a hallway, and he was basically left there, and his pain pump had been removed. And I can't even imagine the pain and the issues he was going through. But hats off to you, Marty. You're one hell of a Marine. You're a tough guy. But
total back operation, putting all these pins in and laying there with no pain medication.
Exactly, and the takeaway there is you got to have an advocate. You got to have somebody. You have to reach outside yourself, if you're able to advocate for yourself. It helps to have that network. It helps to have the camaraderie you talked about, where he got back together with his unit. But just relating yourself and your experience with somebody else that has a similar or common experience, Glenn, really can be beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. It can't be overemphasized how important it is to be able to talk to someone else, usually call it a battle buddy, that understands because they've been through the same kinds of unique experiences you have, and they can understand what you're talking about. They can relate and they can respond, and you can put your trust in them that way. But talking to somebody is extremely important because the old way, I guess, is saying, get it off your chest, man.
Exactly. Well, go ahead.
I don't want to say everything bad about the VA because they're wonderful. They're
Sure there are.
People that my daughter went to talk to were instantly on it for her. So they were like her representative there. Yes, oh my gosh, let me find out about this right now. So yes, there are people there that will help you, but sometimes you have to reach out and ask for help or whatever. So many times it's hard for them to reach out and ask for help, but they need that help, and we should honor them with that help. If they could understand that that's their right to this help.
Exactly. And folks, we're talking with Joanne Ivins, Director of Counseling for AVET Project, and now joining us in what is going to be a regular segment on American Warrior Radio, Journey of the Spirit with Joanne. And you are the lead facilitator for AVET Project's PR&R retreats. That's Project Recuperation and Reintegration for Returning Combat Vets. Folks, this is a perfect opportunity to slip this in because we operate on a shoestring. And I'm telling you, we do incredible things without much money, and nobody gets a paycheck at AVET Project. If you would like to help us help them, meaning our warfighters, our military family, you can do so very easily. Go to avetproject.org, AVET, Alpha Victor Echo Tango Project.org, and just click on the donate button, whether it's $1, $5, $50, or $500. If you're super blessed, 5,000, whatever, it will help us help them by hosting more PR&R retreats for our returning combat vets. We have 10 warfighters right now that are on a waiting list to go on the next PR&R retreat. And it does change lives, and Joanne's told you a little bit about that. But Glenn, you and folks, for everything Glenn was saying about reaching out, and Joanne reiterated as well, that's coming from Major McGuffey, okay? That's coming from one Air Force man that retired and went on to serve another 22 years helping y'all fill out your claims and adjudicate all kinds of problems and help you navigate the sea that is the VA. And Joanne, we know there's a lot of frustration that occurs when veterans engage their VA benefits. You and me and Glenn are here, as is AVET Project, American Warrior Radio, to help them navigate these seas that the VA throws up there. We really appreciate you joining us today on this new segment, Joanne, and I'm really looking forward to your next installment, A Journey of the Spirit. Is there anything else that you'd like to add and throw out to the audience?
No, I just want to tell them, all the veterans, I honor you. I'm in awe of you, all of you. Thank you for letting me be on here.
Awesome. And again, folks, you're going to join us every second Saturday of the month for Journey of the Spirit with Joanne, AVET Project's Director of Counseling, Joanne Ivins. We're going to be bringing it to you every second Saturday, so put that on your calendar as well, because I know you've all noted, every Saturday, 11 to noon, got to listen. And if you're somewhere else in the geographic United States or somewhere else on the planet, you can dial us up at 1300WMEL.com. That's 1300WMEL.com every Saturday from 11 to noon. Glenn, you had a couple other hot topics we wanted to touch on. We still got a minute or two here.
Okay, great. Want to clarify some more street guidance you may get that's never right.
This is the grapevine we're talking about.
Yeah. And what I want to talk about and give you some help with and understanding is transferability of your post 9/11 GI Bill. What does that mean? That means you want to give some of your post 9/11 GI Bill to your spouse or children or a combination of both. And the word on the street is you can do that now as long as you're within that 15 years that your post 9/11 GI Bill is good for. Not true. DOD has decided to use this transferability of your post 9/11 GI Bill as a retention tool, and what that really means is that you have to do it while you're still on active duty. You have no opportunity to do that once you retire or separate from the military. No opportunity.
So if I'm a vet, I cannot transfer my post 9/11 GI Bill.
That's correct. Even though you may still be eligible and have eligibility you don't intend to use, doesn't matter. if you've gotten off active duty, you can't transfer it to your family members.
So I'm on active duty and I want to transfer some of it to my spouse, my wife.
Okay, then you go see the base or post, or
Education
whatever
officer.
the Navy calls it, education officer, and they will be the people to help you do it. And I can tell you, the basic tenet on it is that you're going to have to agree to serve 4 more years of active duty from the date you sign that paperwork to do the transferability.
That's the catch.
That's the catch. It's why I said it's a DOD retention tool. There are some if and or buts to that, even like there is with VA benefits. But this is not really a VA issue per se, because the only way you can do it is while you're still on active duty. And there may be some restrictions that you run into that prevents you from serving 4 more years, but you still have to agree to do it and then serve the remainder of whatever time you have until whatever that restriction is. Like they may have a separation program that makes you get out earlier than 4 years, but you can still transfer it if you're on active duty.
That's very clarifying and enlightening information, Mr. McGuffey. I'm glad you shared that. We've got to always hit upon this at the end of the program. When a veteran or a family member recognizes that a veteran is in crisis, what should they do, Glenn? What must they do?
They must call the Veterans Crisis Line. Write this down, please. 1-800-273-8255. And for veterans, press 1 for veteran issues. Again, 1-800-273-8255. That's the Veterans National Crisis Line. And the VA will get rolling once they get that phone call to get help.
And press 1. 800-273-8255. Press 1. And as always, Glenn,
Don't forget, think of that.